On today's episode of Locked on Avalanche, how are we feeling the day after the Avs opening day win against the Los Angeles Kings? And a suspension was handed down from that game. I shouldn't say suspension, a fine. I'm sorry, not a suspension. A fine was handed down from that game, but not the one you might be thinking of or expecting. New episode of Locked on Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked on Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. Make sure to tune into our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And make sure to follow us on our YouTube channel over on YouTube. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. Definitely subscribe to our subtext as well. Link to that is in the show notes below. And when you subscribe, you chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. Definitely get in on that. Fun things going on over there. And we will get to some of those subtext, our peoples over there, on how they felt about game one. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see our rundown over there. We will get to the Avs and Sharks. We'll kind of preview that as best we can. It's tough to kind of preview this early in the season, but the Sharks are the Sharks. So that's Saturday's game, and we will get to that fine. But it wasn't. What do we call him now? PL Dubois.
PL Dubois.
PL Dubois. Okay. All right.
Sounds like a fine cologne.
Yeah. Jacquard Dubois. But we're going to start, and we're going to be doing this all year long. We're going to introduce like a new kind of way to talk about the game the day after. And things kind of just stick around with you and win or lose, right? When you have a win, there's some things that stick with you that you're still thinking about the next day. Like, man, I really liked how they did that. And same thing for a loss. So if something, doesn't go well, it sticks with you the next day. You're thinking about it in the morning. And that's why we're calling this the morning leftovers, right? So when you wake up in the morning and you're still thinking about Avalanche hockey, which I do all the time. I don't know why everybody doesn't. I mean,
it's the way to be.
Isn't that like, in the Constitution or something? Last time I checked.
It will be when I'm president.
So, and for me, the first thing that I was thinking of, and you felt really good. You always feel good when you get the first win of the season on the first game of the season. But I alluded to it yesterday, and this is another reason we're doing it is because we record that show moments after the game is over. So, your emotions adrenaline is still pumping from, just watching that game and any game. And now you can like take a little bit of a step back and then look at things differently maybe than you were not when you were kind of in the raw emotion of everything. Right. But I started the show yesterday with it, and it still holds true for me. The way this team is just built differently.
Yeah.
And you knew that, but just based on the roster, that's no secret. But now seeing them play and not giving up that lead, it's just a different dynamic of a team. And it's not what you had last year. It's not you don't have so many question marks. You have a more solid, sound team. And that really stuck with me today.
Chris, we've been doing this so long that we are now blending into a hive mind. We exist in the same plane. That's exactly what I was thinking about all day long. Like we always, like in the off season, everybody does the whole, what if Nathan MacKinnon played with Joe Sakic, or vice versa? What if Patrick Waugh was on that cup winning team?
Mm-hmm.
I think about things like that all the time. And all day today, I kept thinking about what would last year's team do against a scrappy, goonery at times Kings team with the slash, like with Ross Colton getting sprayed on the wrists and like just trying to and getting back in the game. Like everybody look around you. no Avalanche injury coming out of that game. Like everybody
We
played the
haven't heard
game.
any yet. We'll
Yeah,
say that. Yeah.
no, it's not one of those. Oh well, we haven't seen him return to the bench. It's my favorite. Oh, I love that last year. That was so
Yeah.
much fun. But they not only did they stay healthy, they that was a that we talk about the top 9 a lot. That top 9 was so gritty, and there was no break. We talked about
Mhm.
that. It was the year before the cup season, like the bend don't break Avalanche. You didn't see that at all against the Kings. They
Yeah.
kept going. They had a mission and they stuck to it for 60 minutes. When was the last time you heard that?
They did. I would say. I mean, they played hard for 60 minutes. That doesn't mean they were in total command for 60 minutes, right? I mean, LA was taking back some of the momentum, but you didn't see an Avalanche team just all of a sudden get on their heels and stop and just get into like defense mode, right? Like they had to stop the bleeding, but it wasn't like you didn't like nick an artery. It was
No.
just like you had like some concrete burn or something like that. And
Yeah.
okay, there's a little bit something there, but let's just keep playing our game and let's get it. Let's just get it. You put a little band-aid on that and you're good to go. And I mean, how many times last year when things just fell apart, they just completely fell apart. And you liked to see that the ads they just stayed in command even when things were getting a little bit out of control. So that absolutely stuck with me.
And I know everybody's kind of looking back at it now, like in this morning leftovers, in hindsight, like it's the Kings. And but
Mhm.
it's not the same Kings team. Like this Avalanche team with this core, they've had problems with the Arizona Coyotes. Does everybody remember that Boston game a couple years ago?
Oh,
That Buffalo embarrassment? Like
mm,
those games will creep up, and the Avalanche are notorious for playing down. And we talked to Eddie in a locked over the crossover.
mhm.
Like this team believes in itself, and they really feel good about where the direction of this team and where it's going. And when you see the Avalanche stacked up against a team like that, it gives you such optimism, especially heading into this weekend. And you can see what this team could do if they play down again.
Yeah.
And for them to be like, I honestly, even with a 0 for 5 on the power play, like that speaks volumes to where this team could go against superior talent in these back to backs and longer stretches of the season.
Yeah. Um, some other things that stuck with me, obviously that top line.
Yeah.
Just the excitement from that top line. And you didn't want to get out to, and I know it's just one game, right? But you didn't want to have question marks about many things. You didn't want to have question marks about that third line. You didn't want to have question marks about health or injuries, and you didn't want to have question marks as far as like, oh, they're not off to a quick start. They're not up. They're off to a slow start. And when is it going to start clicking? And I know it's just one game, and it could still go the other way right now, right? But you love the fact that you don't have to answer those questions at least after one game for that top line. What was it? 8 points total, I think.
Mhm.
4 for Miko, 3 for McKinnon. He had an assist for Drouin. So, like, great. That is what you want. So we're not, because we would be right now, we would be sitting here being like, all right, that's not the start we want. We're not throwing in the towel or hitting the panic button or anything like that. But it's just, we don't have to talk about it. And it's just for them, it's got to be that. I don't want to say, I mean, I could be a confidence booster. It's like, yeah, look what we can do. And we haven't even gelled yet. And we haven't even got into the mix of a season. Game one against a really good opponent, we're putting this many points up. Gotta
And
love it.
and it's one of those that I'm even more isolated on that view. Nathan McKinnon got this going for the Colorado Avalanche in this season. I remember
First
last
goal of the
year,
year.
yeah, it
Yep.
was we were talking about, oh, is Nathan McKinnon transitioning to this assist machine? When's he really going to get going? No,
Mhm.
you could tell that Nathan McKinnon is hungry, he's angry, and he wants that cup back. And he
No,
went out
definitely.
there, and that top line is extremely hungry, even with the addition of
Mhm.
Drouin. Like that is and with Cale Makar also tallying one, like line one is going to be dangerous, and this team has a fire And that was exactly what you wanted to see going into this season.
100%. There's a couple more I want to mention. I don't know if you have any more that you have, but there's definitely two more that I want to get to. One is a good one. One is not so good. So even though it was a good win, one is I don't want to see this. So we'll talk about that next. But first, we're going to talk about Jace Medical and the Jace case. And everyone should be empowered to care for themselves, excuse me, and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace case. The Jace case, hey man, I think I need the Jace case right now. Provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. And Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. So don't get caught unprepared. You can get $20 off of these life-saving antibiotics today at Jace Medical by using the promo code locked on at checkout at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. The two more things that I wanted to get to about things that were sticking with me in our morning leftovers segment. Again, maybe as much as that opening thing that I was talking about, just feeling good about the Avalanche, just, holding their ground when the tide was turning individually. And I even mentioned it yesterday. I might be buying a Miles Wood jersey soon. I just, and kind of like going back and watching some of the highlights and things like that. And he's not going to load up the stat sheet, but man, is he going to make people stand up and cheer. And I can't wait to see him do that in front of a Ball Arena crowd where his hustle pays off and that place goes bonkers. Really like what he can bring to the team. He's not a perfect player by any stretch of the imagination. And when you play the way he does, mistakes are going to happen because he's going 100 all the time. But I'll take some of those. I'll take the hardworking mistakes over lazy mistakes any day of the week.
He reminds me almost of a Valerian Kaminsky, like that same like rumbling, bumbling style. And I was like, ooh, this is nice. And like,
where did he come from?
Yeah, this is wonderful. And it's seeing him last year with the Devils. I really fell in love with his play, especially last year. It really resonated. And when he became a member of the Avalanche, I was like, how we were talking about Caleb Jones, like this just makes sense. The same with Miles Wood. And it's going to be one of those that every game that goes by, you're like, why did it take so long for us to bring him over here? He is perfect for the Avalanche.
He is, really is. So that, and then the one downside thing, like, yeah, you prevented them from getting a power play goal, but you gave them 5 opportunities. Got it. You don't want to be, that team that is always getting penalized. So, and some of them were silly. Looking at you, Bo Byram. But let's cut down on that. And it's good. I mean, you're giving your penalty kill a good look early on, but let's just clean that up a little bit. Clean up. Hold on, you gotta.
Yeah, it's one of those situations. Like looking at it after you sleep on it a little bit, you kind of want to chalk the silly penalties up to it's the first night of the season. It's the emotions game 1, and honestly, coming out to such a strong start, you don't expect it to be a continuing narrative, but my goodness, what a good test for this theory than San Jose.
Yeah. Getting to some of the subtext people. Our boy Vargar says, I got to brag about my boy Miko. He's a big Miko fan. So happy to see him pick up right where he left off, and then some. Was it just me, or did his skating ability seem to improve this off season? Felt like his directional changes were quicker and smoother. What a force. I love the game. Amazing way to start the season. Some crazy officiating, but that's become par for the course. What else can you say about that? Whatever. I mean, officiating is what it is. I didn't really notice his skating ability like improving. He's just a calm, cool, collected skater.
He did.
Um,
He
but
felt a lot sleeker in a lot of his movements, and he was
think so.
a like a submarine. Like he would just like appear and then disappear. He was
Yeah.
stealthy.
He was better on the with the puck. I mean, not that
Yeah.
he's terrible with the puck, but he we go back to that goal scored by McKinnon. Um, that's behind the net where there's always a lot of traffic, and he's just a cool cucumber, man. Like
Yeah.
yeah, you love seeing that. This I just have his I don't have his name. Sorry. It said would like to see us lead in the shots on goal category. Otherwise, forecheck look great. Yeah, we talked about that yesterday. And the team is built and it shows. Now we need to stay healthy and not let the other team lead in shots on goal. I mean, you always want to lead in shots on goal,
Yeah.
but it's the quality of those shots on goal. It's not just you look at the number and it's like, oh, they beat us in shots on goal. Okay, were they quality chances? Were they high danger chances? And for the Kings, they really weren't. They had that moment where they were getting good looks, but for the most part, the Avs were just really they were trapping them and not giving them good lines of sight to Georgiev. It was a good defensive game, I thought.
Yeah, I'd like to see the face-offs also. I want to see us win more of
Improve a little
those.
bit.
The face-offs that they are winning are crucial. I'd like to see it become more of a skewed stat Colorado's way.
Yeah. So, yeah, those were a couple from. Just want to get a couple of those in from the subtext crowd. There was a fine that came afterwards in this game, and it was the one that there was not even a penalty called on this. This was the one that was against Ross Colton. Who was it that slashed him?
Philip Deneau?
Yeah, it was Deneau. Nothing was called. And they fined him $5,000, which is the maximum allowed under the collective bargaining agreement. Okay, fine. I'm not saying calls can get missed. I don't know how that one got missed, but if it did, it did. And just because it was not a penalty doesn't mean it's not finable, which clearly this is. But my question is the PL Dubois one is still just hanging out there. And by now it's not going to happen. Like if we heard about that the next morning on the Denault one, like and we don't have anything on the Dubois one, like we're not going to it this time. And I kind of throw my hands up and do like, wow.
The Deneau fine,
Mhm.
$5,000. So that's the equivalent of 5 sprays of whatever spray they
Whatever.
used on Ross Colton, whatever Boom Tough Actin Tinactin or
all,
whatever it
all it
was.
is just mosquito spray is probably
Yeah, so but no, it
got a
was
lot of DEET,
silly,
extra DEET.
extra deep.
Yeah.
I mean, summer's over, but
Yeah.
it was kind of silly that that's what came out of it as a fine, and PLD whatever, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like I think that moment got taken away. We pointed out in jest, but the fight and the throwdown afterwards and the reaction, I think that took a lot of the moment away. But I have a feeling the league is watching
Mhm.
because of the suspensions that we talked about in the crossover that have already come down for the same offense.
Yeah.
And this little incident that led to the fight, we're completely forgetting about what instigated it. I feel like this is going to be something they're watching the Kings on going forward. And when this fine does eventually happen for a future instance, we can all
Yeah.
point and say, they are watching. It's just not us.
I mean, they can't ignore it just because the penalty was called, right? Like you can't say like, "Oh no, well he got 2 minutes of game time." Like no, there's got to be more to it than that.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're looking at it that way. I think they are just blatantly ignoring this. I think they definitely looked at it, and that was that. I'm sorry, man. That was just a dangerous, dangerous play.
Yeah.
So
I hope they don't find the fight afterwards as
no,
just
they're
a
not
way
going
of
to do that.
justice.
Oh, like not find anybody because
Yeah.
the fine happened or because the fight happened.
That they handled it on the ice because remember who's
Yeah,
handling Department of Player Safety.
exactly. Exactly. And that's the thing, man. You don't know.
Yeah.
Like you could throw out the most wild thing right now, and it could be on the table and true. So we have no idea. One last thing to get to, and that is looking at this Saturday game against the San Jose Sharks. So we will do that next. But first, we are going to hear from the Sleeper app. The NHL season obviously is finally here, Avalanche fans. And you know that we love the NHL and we know that you do too. And that's why we want you to download the Sleeper app. And it's the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL network. And it's our go to for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey. With Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash on daily fantasy. The league has never been more exciting than it is right now with Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen, Nathan McKinnon, Curtis McDermott. Just pick more or less on the stats for these stars on stats like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and so much more. And you get 100 times payout on Sleeper. So start paying attention to those stats and get your picks right. And you could win big. Use the promo code Locked On NHL, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. Once again, that promo code is Locked On NHL. You can see the Sleeper terms of use for details. Avs and Sharks. This is continuing their opening to the season on the road. Another game in California. And then this time, like you're going up against, the first game was against a very formidable team, expected to secure a playoff spot, maybe make some waves in the playoffs. Now you're going up against the complete opposite. Many people, myself included, think the San Jose Sharks are going to be the bottom team, number 32 in the league. There's really nothing there to excite you right now. But it's early in the season and, guys still want to make a name for themselves. You know what I mean? Like they're still going to play hard. But the difference in rosters here is just night and day. We always joke that the Avs have issues with Arizona. This is worse than that. The Avs, I mean, I know there's parity in this league, Kyle, but the Avs really have to go in, even though it's the second game of the season, you're still kind of finding your way and getting like those lines to gel right. You still got to go into this and just take care of business. Don't play with them. Just put them out of their misery.
You hit on my point exactly. Like, I don't think this is a question at this point. I'm a nerd. I'm a geek. This is how I am. This is a choose your own adventure for the Colorado Avalanche. Like the Avalanche they are notorious for playing down previously.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why teams like Arizona and Buffalo, like we just mentioned earlier, like that game creeped up on them. This is Colorado. Every member on the team, I'm speaking to you now. Avalanche fans have been begging for this. Hang a 10 spot on the Sharks.
It could happen, man. It really could. If they're on their game, it could happen. And it's tough to predict, but
it's one of those that the Avalanche in their mindset, they're like, oh, what a great opening game. This is exactly what we want. Oh, it's the Sharks. Let's take a breath, coast through. Seattle coming up next week. That's so easy to get into that mindset. Like, all right, we did what we needed to do. We got a good gritty win. It's the Sharks. Let's just go and do our business. I already look ahead to Seattle because that's got so much emotion on the line. Let's teach them a lesson. Let's get back on this. It's easy to overlook this game, and then you find yourself 3-3, 4-4 in the third period, trying to figure out what's going on. Hey, Jacob McDonald's a Shark, by the way. Everybody remember him?
Yeah.
He's still out there. So
I think it's a little bit of a blessing in disguise that this is the second game of the season, because I don't think they take this lightly. I don't think they overlook it, because you want to continue this good start for as long as you can. If this game was in December or something like that, people would throw out the trap game, title for this, even though it should never be a trap game, right? But I think just because it's the second game of the year, you played so well the first game of the year, you want to continue that. It's the start of your season. So I don't see them really coming, I would hope not, coming down to the level of San Jose, and at least this early in the year.
Well, you hear this? Look, I'm popping the top on another morning leftover. I'm taking to the Sharks.
Mm-hmm.
What a fantastic game for that second line to wake up. Like they were
Yeah,
out there, like
yeah,
Nuke and Raijo, like and Lecky. Like what a great game for them to find some cohesion because
yeah.
you're really not going to be challenged. They're not going to really goon it up. Go out there and really find your rhythm. And this is the perfect game to do it and carry all three fully operating chemistry lines into that Seattle game. This is
Yeah.
the game you want to do it. So that's what I want to see in this game. I know line one works. I know line three works. I don't care about the fourth line because we're probably not going to use it. Line two, find your
You
chemistry
should
in
in
this
this
game.
game. You should use your fourth line in this game. You really shouldn't be taxing like your top three lines in this game. Got like there's so few times where in the NHL where you're just man like this could get ugly. In football when a team is bad, right now, like as we're recording this, the Denver Broncos are going up against Kansas City. I
Bad
don't even know
football? What
what
are you talking
you know what I
about?
mean? Like you have no confidence the Denver Broncos will win that game, right? But for the most part in hockey, even like the bad teams, you have confidence they can beat some of the good teams. But I mean,
Vancouver over Edmonton.
yeah, I mean Vancouver should be a pretty decent team, but they're not. Edmonton played terrible. I don't know. I like for this, it's just I mean, you saw what the Avalanche did against the Kings and their talent, their top talent was just, this much higher than the Kings' top talent. What this is, I mean, this is literally like an all-star team going up against an AHL team. So
I've seen the Mighty Ducks movies. I
you
know how
should
this plays out.
this should not be close at all. And I don't talk about a hockey game like this very often.
Yeah.
But come on, guys! Like how I'm saying in the beginning, how this is a different looking team. If you had all those guys back from last year, I don't think I'd be talking this way. I think we'd be talking like confident that the Avalanche would win, but it'd be like, hey, they normally do play down to the opponent, and after one game, I don't feel that way.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way. So I hope this gets ugly. I hope it does. And then that, even though it's the Sharks, it doesn't matter if you do hang up a 10 spot, I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Avs they're too good for that. They'll take their foot off the gas, but um, it'll just make people be aware of like, oh yeah, let's not forget about that Avalanche team. So go
It's
ahead.
yeah, the Avs honestly, this is a I really wish they would. Like I know
Yeah.
Avs teams of old would not hang a 10 spot because they could. I say go for 11. They need to make a
Yeah,
statement. Like if this
I
team is
know.
going to be that hungry, like you're not the defending champs anymore. Like you need to
No,
go out there and take take the league by notice. Like this team is back and look at this roster. Let other people just other than us start looking at this team and say, wow, there is actually something here. And you could stack this up against whatever team going into the season you said, oh, Carolina's this. Oh, like Boston used to be this. Colorado is built to win the whole thing.
sure.
And this is where you start taking the league and say, hey, we are back and we are coming.
You got to feel for San Jose too, because the whoever makes the schedules for the NHL looked at them and said, "Well, they're probably going to be one of the worst teams in the league, so let's just make sure they get off to the worst start possible." This is their first 4 games. They're playing um, momentarily as we're recording this. First game of the year against Vegas. I guess the one silver lining here is all these games are at home for them. So their first game, Vegas. Second game, Avalanche. Third game, Hurricanes. Fourth game, Bruins. That is a daunting gauntlet for a team that is not supposed to do anything. So look at Chicago. Got off to a pretty good start. They beat Pittsburgh. A good matchup against the Bruins. That was a good game. And long term they're not going to do it, but they got off to a pretty good start. This is like who's a terrible team in baseball,
No,
and after the first pitch, you're like season's over.
I honestly, I feel like the NHL scheduling made the Sharks the Washington Generals against the Harlem Globetrotters. Like
Yeah,
that's the only team they play, and they get embarrassed every night, and that's part of
horrible.
the show. Like I feel like the Sharks are now that.
Horrible. So you have some sympathy for them, but I don't want to have any sympathy for them when their Avalanche are out there on the ice with them Saturday
I'll
night.
have sympathy for them on Sunday.
Yeah, take it to them. Get out of there. Be 2-0-0. Continue this the good start to the season. All right, that's going to wrap it up for today and for this week. So thank you everybody for tuning in and making this your first listen. Always that is always appreciated. So enjoy the game over the weekend. We will be back on Monday to discuss it all. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. Enjoy the weekend, everyone. We'll see you Monday.